My friends call me Zero, Reverend Zero. I tell people I'm 52, one for every card in the pack. But I'm Zuti's toy boy. I've taken medical retirement. I used to work in a casino, which was quite restrictive and wouldn't allow me to take drugs. But before that, I worked as an artist, which people expect you to take drugs. I've sit around for a long time at parties and things, having the same discussion about why drugs are good for some people, wondering why drugs are so illegal, and when you're preaching to the choir, we've never come up with answers. So this is a good idea of putting our point of view across. And I've always been perfectly honest with just about everybody that I take drugs. I mean, I don't necessarily bring it up, but if people have asked me, I've told them. So I see no reason why not to be identified. After all, I can't get this back anymore. My mother knows, my brothers know, everybody but my grandchildren know, I think. They accept it, certainly. I've got a brother in the North of England who say, "You will be careful, won't you?" Because all he gets about drugs is the media's presentation about it. So I just reassure him that actually I'm the one who takes a load of drugs, and I'm not one people take drugs, and so far very little bad has ever happened. To me personally, I once accidentally mixed my codeine that I take as a prescription from the doctor, took them a little too early with some ketamine, which meant I had to go for a walk around the cemetery for a while I recovered. Strange enough though, the only bad experience I tend to really get, or bad side effects from drugs, are the drugs my doctor gives me. I have a condition called chronic pain syndrome, which means for some reason my nervous system thinks I'm in pain. Right at this moment, I'm 24 hours a day, I'm on patches that are this artificial opiate called fentanyl, which depending on which website you look at is 50 times more powerful than heroin, but I get tiny little bits constantly to deal with my pain. And that, I mean, it's been gradually going up over the last couple of years, the amount given me, so as you get more, the side effects get worse, so I tend not to sleep much, I don't feel like eating, and I feel cold all the time. And in my time I've taken oral morphine, codeine, lots of things like that from the doctor. Okay, unfortunately, ironically, the worst category of pills for me, but it helps with the pain, but it doesn't help with your lifestyle. I've never smoked at all. I used to drink, I don't know, back in the North East England where we were poor, drink was about the cheapest thing you'd have. So when I was like early teens, up into my 20s, I could drink quite a lot. When I was about 16, 17, I must have smoked cannabis a bit. But again, it sounds odd, but around there at the time, it wasn't that freely available and I couldn't really afford it at that age. So I didn't really start doing a lot of drugs until we moved to Glastonbury, home of the hippie. And I started smoking cannabis reasonably regularly then. And what regularly would be when you were hanging out with people. It became a place where when people would say tea, coffee, cannabis, it'd be quite normal, it'd be the friendly thing to do. So when you were chilling out with people, you'd smoke a clip. I always smoke pipes, but I don't smoke tobacco. And after that, it probably wasn't until I took magic mushrooms and acid out of interest about, maybe 15, 16 years ago.
So how long after you tried cannabis was that?
Oh, years. What, 20 years. Mainly because I started studying philosophy, both at university and Open University and things, and psychoactive drugs like that are a good way of experimenting with what consciousness is and what reality is. Took a bit of that, didn't really take a lot of other drugs until took ecstasy with Zuti on the beach for Fatboy Slim. I didn't run up and down the beach because I can't run very fast, but I had a great time on that. I went to take ketamine. Strangely enough, the story is that the first time I came across ketamine, I heard a lecture from this clinical psychologist who had done a study in out-of-body experience in ketamine, a guy called Carl Jansen. And I came back and told Zuti about this, and we'd already taken ecstasy and having a good time with chemicals. And she thought, oh, that sounds a bit dodgy, I've heard ketamine's bad. It was only until literally we met friends who said, oh, we've taken ketamine, that she believed them over the clinical psychiatrist, which I think was quite good. Once you start uh, going out and buying drugs, you find other drugs exist. So there's a great one, 2CI and 2CB, made by a guy called Shulgin, which I found out from, again, like Luty, I've read a lot of books about drugs, even before I'd taken them. So this guy called Shulgin came up with these drugs, 2CI, 2CB, so I had to go with those. All of which you don't, I mean, people do take them recreationally, if you ask me, but I think a lot of these are things you don't take every day. You don't take it every week. Partly because I think your tolerance would grow for them, but also they affect you quite profoundly for quite a long time. So, apart from, of course, DMT, which is legendary in the psychoactive thing of the only drug where you close your eyes and you open them again and you're on a different planet, which I have taken 3 times and only worked once, which was quite profound, but I haven't done it since, and though I might do it again since, that's definitely one that you don't do just for the fun of it. I took lines of ketamine, which you can't take and function. You just lie down in a comfy space, in a dark room, and put on the best one is Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. And that, with your eyes closed to that, you go off into different worlds. You literally fly across landscapes. I've been, and you feel more than just seeing things. You tactile, you experience a different world. Which asks the question: if my brain is making this up, right? What is that different to the outside world? Where does all the light come from? So I'm still questioning what it tells me about consciousness, but it tells me my consciousness, that reality is also part of my consciousness. I make up reality to a certain extent as well.
Okay.
I seem to have, over the years, become more tolerant of people, more forgiving of certain things, more patient. Maybe partly because I realise that I'm interpreting what people are telling me, what things are happening, and sometimes my irritation at somebody may want to be something they're doing. So I think, as a positive thing, it's made me a better person. I'm still way behind on figuring out the nature of the universe yet, and precisely, but I keep trying. Certainly I have grandchildren who are coming up to, one coming up to 16, and I've had a deal with their parents all the time that I won't bring up the subject of drugs, ever, but if they one day ask me, do you take drugs? I'm not going to lie to them. Especially because, if you lie to them, they're never going to believe me if I say some drugs are bad. I can never recommend drugs for people, especially if you... I wouldn't recommend anybody take ketamine and lie in a flotation tank, because... before I've done that, I went through a lot of... I did meditation, I know my own mind. So, you can't just think you're going to do all that and it'll come out okay. Equally, I wouldn't recommend it because one day I might take something that drives me mad. Well, that's my risk, and I'm prepared to do that, but I wouldn't then therefore recommend to young people, it's a great idea to take load of acid, because it isn't. I'm honest with everybody I meet. I can tell them what I think and what I feel. I may not be right about everything, but my opinion is my opinion.
So why do you think, though, it's not okay for the government to tell you can't take drugs, but it's okay for you to tell young people they shouldn't take drugs? What's the distinction?
But I'd advise people that individual people, they may want to take a certain drug, but I wouldn't take away their right to do it. I think if it's a case of, well, it's your risk then if you do. I think information is much better than just saying no. Okay, there are drugs I won't take. I don't take GHB because I've known too many people throw up blood on GHB for no apparent great benefit. But I know people who have taken it. So the same thing, if somebody coming up to say, would you take that? I'd tell them exactly that. That's why I don't do it. Some people respect me of the guy who's taken loads of weird drugs and done these interesting experiments. So if they come up to me and say, should I do that? That's why I tell people, strangely enough, I don't drink alcohol anymore at all. And I don't smoke tobacco. So does that tell you something if you respect me about drugs? Does it tell you what I think about those drugs? Should I tell them that's okay? But I then come out eventually with, but it's your decision. The fact that the government blanketly bans all these things for no logical reason. I mean, this is why I say we sit around at parties saying, but why is it banned like this? If it was about health, then tobacco and alcohol would be banned straight away. We simply don't know. But banning something knocks on to, you cannot research any of this in any sensible way. It seems obvious to me from my experience and to lots of people researching it as best they can that ecstasy is quite harmless compared to a lot of other drugs, compared to drugs that my doctor will prescribe me. But because it's banned, no one can actually do any decent official research into this. So banning anything actually shuts down human knowledge, and that doesn't help anybody. Again, I suppose, if they legalise things, and then in a few years' time, respectable people who I could respect came up and said, this thing is so bad for you, it makes your head explode, I might start believing them. But strange enough, when people who say they admit to having smoked dope, but now they are telling people nobody should smoke dope, why should I believe them? I don't think I do anything that harms anybody but myself, or risks harming anybody but myself. In the papers a few weeks ago, and I don't want people to get it wrong, but 2 young people, about 20-something, climbed a mountain and died climbing a mountain. Right? Which is a personal tragedy for them and their family. But the newspaper article said, these great heroes who tried to climb this mountain died and failed. If I try to explore consciousness and what consciousness means to me and reality through taking drugs, and something bad happened to me, I'd be a foolish person who did something like, how can that be? How can one person who climbed a mountain be a hero and I'd be foolish? Equally, lots of people who created great music, great art, and have benefited the culture of the world have taken drugs. Whereas if you climb a mountain, the person who benefits most maybe is you. That's how I see myself in the position, and yet it's a criminal offence for what I do. If they made heroin legal tomorrow, I'm not going to take heroin, am I? Because I don't like the idea. So, no, I don't think I'm a criminal, but if I was caught, the consequences would be fairly bad. Obviously, as I say, the reason I don't kill people is because I don't think you should kill people, not because there's a law against it. The first time I took ecstasy, that's a profound experience in the fact it's empathic. I was quite shy, I swear, before I took ecstasy. Right? And it's the only one I think that when you come back, when you come off it, you're not quite the same. It loosens you up in a positive way. In somebody's back garden in San Francisco said, try this, let's try to make it work. And they helped me smoke it. I didn't expect it to work. I've tried it twice and nothing really happened. And I got these amazing psychedelic patterns, rather like a psychedelic curtain covering the scene. And then I noticed there was a figure behind the curtain. And the figure reached out and took my hand and pulled me through, which is way more profound, a solid experience than any acid I've ever had. And then I had a few moments of amnesia. And then I was walking with my friends in this Southern California city that I was quite well, not thinking I was on drugs or anything, I was quite right. And we came around a corner and, it's a hard thing to explain, crashed into this kind of carnival ride that I got caught up in. And there's people there trying to get me out of the carnival ride. They're telling me, trying to get this way, but it's lights and things, weird things happening. And I get pulled up into this carnival ride. This took quite a long time, actually. And eventually, voices are telling me, you've got to be careful, we've got to try and get out of this. This is going on. So I had to learn to be calm and relaxed, and they hauled me out of this ride. And I knew somebody else was there. They were talking to me, which I didn't realise at the time was somebody else in the garden. I was totally in a different world. Only when I was lying back waiting for them to rescue me, I was thinking, have I taken some drugs? Did somebody spike me? But couldn't really remember. It was only gradually, as they pulled me out of this ride, I came back into this garden, that I began to realise I was still in this garden. Which I found amazing. The realisation that all this had happened because I was on these drugs, I had gone to this different world. As I land there, it's very hard to explain. Behind me, there were still figures made out of the background that I was seeing, asking me, all right, that went a bit wrong, didn't it? We didn't expect you. Do you want to come back with us now? But I was able to tell them, no, actually, my friends here are freaking out now. Because to them, I was talking to invisible people. So I decided that I wouldn't do that that night, and they've gone away. I haven't done it since, not because I'm afraid to do it, but because I will do it at an appropriate time. But that was undoubtedly the most profound thing, to actually open your eyes and be in a different world. what does it, again, an interesting thing I found, I haven't had no problem believing that the world I'm in now is a real world. But equally, my experience of that world was as a real world. So that is something I am still thinking very carefully about, what had told me about the nature of reality. I've known a few people who've been arrested for taking illegal drugs. This is the thing, I'm trying to think, I don't think I've known anybody who has had any long-term physical or health problems from taking illegal drugs. So the only problems I've found people have had are social problems. They've been arrested and taken away. I've known people who actually have been done for dealing drugs when all they've done is given people decent drugs that they asked for at a decent price. I have come across people who I think I've advised them, man, you've been taking quite a lot of drugs. Maybe you should lay off this for a while. I think partly because I'm the one telling them, I'm saying I take a lot of drugs too. My joke with that is apparently James Taylor stopped taking drugs when John Belushi told him, man, you're taking too many drugs. Well, that's what I say, because I'm honest about how many drugs I take, I feel I'm in a position to say, well, I wouldn't do that. But again, it's up to them to take it, whether they take it or not. Taking anything to excess. If you drink to excess, you expect to suffer for it. I think if you take vast quantities of anything, you're going to actually start getting bad side effects.